Hello, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. It's that time of week again, everybody's favorite power rankings. It's Independence Day down for my friends in the United States. So, special edition maybe. Still on Sunday, we still have the late night game, which is actually starting relatively later than normal with Arizona and San Francisco. But I don't think that's going to change too much. We know who's going to be down here and et cetera, et cetera. But we're just going to jump right into it with them. Arizona Diamondbacks, number 30. I don't think that I need to say too much else. They're number 30. They're likely going to stay number 30. They've been proving it over and over. They're the weakest team in the MLB. Number 29, we got the Baltimore Orioles. Orioles had a nice, amazing sweep of the Houston Astros, but then they got swept over this weekend by the Angels. Well, I give them a lot of credit for beating the Stros. It's one series. It's been a long season for the Baltimore Orioles, but it's at least a step in the right direction, and consider them a chance to move up if they can win a couple games next week for sure. Moving along, we got Pittsburgh Pirates 0-3 against Colorado, 1-3 against Milwaukee. Argument can be made that they could have dropped down. I'm going to give them another week to see. I kind of do like their pitching over the Orioles a little bit. I find that they have a better division to be able to technically pick up some wins along the way. That's what gives them the edge for me. Number 27, we got the Royals. They went 0-4 against Boston. They pretty much got dominated by Boston. Had 3 leads in that series, blew them all. And then they beat the Twins this weekend 2-1. Pretty much a wash between those two teams, keeping them below the Twins right now, who I actually have number 26 as the Twins, going 1-2 against the Royals. I think they're a better team if they had everyone healthy. They're missing Buxton, obviously. They lost the series this weekend. They had a little bit of a lead. Like, they dropped a couple spots. There were a few more spots above Kansas City. So I'm not ready to quite flip them because I do think the Royals are a little bit weaker overall, even though they won this weekend. Twins also lost to the White Sox. They got swept earlier in the week after all that Donaldson and Giolito drama. Made a video about that. So if you haven't checked that out, make sure you check that out. Maybe I'll throw that in there. Moving along, number 25, we have the Colorado Rockies, and honestly, they had a really good week. I think they went 6-1 on the week. They swept the Pirates. They went 3-1 against the Cardinals. Really, 25, probably an underestimate. They've at least shown when they're at home, they're a very different ball club than they are on the road. But we're going to keep them at 25 for now because it's 1 week, and every team can have a winning week. Unless not a lot of the teams below them have 6-1 weeks. Next up, we have the Texas Rangers, 2-1 against Oakland, 1-2 against Seattle this week. So overall, 500 week. But I just like what I see with Texas going into the future. Every night they put up a big fight. I like their prospects a little bit better than Colorado going forward. I like some of their pitching and their bullpen. I just think overall they put up a big fight, whereas Colorado on the road usually gets pummeled. Although if you're going to go talk about starters, you might give Colorado the edge in that situation. Number 23, we got the Miami Marlins. They went 1-1 against Philly and then 1-2 against Atlanta over the weekend. It was a pretty big rivalry matchup against Atlanta this weekend. Overall, I think they're a very young team with a lot of potential. Definitely their starters going to have a long trajectory of a good team. They're going to end up selling a lot and likely can drop down, but they're going to be selling, setting themselves up for future. Expect them to very much come in last place in the division. But I think overall, I put them ahead of all the other teams there. Number 22, we got the LA Angels. They actually had a good week. Not holding my breath just yet because their starting pitching gives me a lot of concerns, but they went 2-1 against the Yankees and then 2-1 against Baltimore. Maybe 3-1 or 2-1 against Baltimore. Yeah, they lost one. But the Angels, with Ohtani leading the way of home runs, if they didn't have Ohtani, they'd be very much in the bottom row right now. They're missing Trout. Their starting pitching is atrocious. Their bullpen can be atrocious. But I think 22 is a very safe spot for them. And honestly, if they keep this up, we're at the halfway point now. They have a good chance to do well. Number 21, Detroit Tigers. Moving on up, 2-1 against Cleveland. 2-1 against Chicago White Sox. Both division matchups, both winning series. Tigers have been pretty consistently around 500 or better for the majority of the weeks as of late. And they're a young team with a lot of potential. And the fact that they beat both their division rivals this week, I have a lot of faith that this team is going to be making the steps in the right direction, at least in the next couple of years. Very much keep your eye out. They're going to be a threat coming forward. And even right now, they're playing spoiler to a T. Number 20, we got the Philadelphia Phillies. 1-1 against Milwaukee and 2-1 against the Padres. Like, they had a good week, but I'm not sold. This team is very worrisome for me. Bullpen's blown so many games. The offense is the only thing that really has going for them. They have Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola, so on a good series, if they get those two guys, they have a good chance to win the series. But without those guys, they're in a lot of trouble. I think the space between them and the teams ahead of them in the division is growing, and it's not looking good for them to make moves. So I kind of have them at 20 at this point, not expecting them to make a run at the playoffs. Number 19, I almost showed you number 1 there. I don't know if you guys might have caught that. Number 19, we got St. Louis Cardinals, 3-0 against Arizona. But then they went 1-3 against the Rockies. So they took care of the last place team, and then they had another weak team where this could be a chance for them to make up some ground after falling way behind in the Central. But they blew it. They 1-3 against the Rockies. Rockies seem to have done well against them the past 2 weeks. And Cardinals pretty much running low of opportunity now with the Brewers, the way they've been playing. Number 18, we got that Atlanta Braves. They had a good week, 2-1 against the Mets and 2-1 against the Marlins. They beat both teams in their division, and they're slowly chipping up. Still have my concerns with them. Acuna's been on and off injury this season. Freddie Freeman's had an okay season, and their pitching's been out to lunch. With Soraka out for what looks like the remainder of the season, I do see them outside looking in, at least the way they've been playing right now. Number 17, we have the New York Yankees. Now, I don't think we really thought they'd drop this far, going 1-2 against the Angels and 1-2 against the Mets. So they had a losing week, and I think their fans are starting to get tired of them. The division's kind of stacked. They're in 4th in the division now, and a lot of games to make up to even have a chance of catching Boston, let alone the wild card spot. They need to turn it around because there's a lot of teams ahead of them playing better baseball than them right now, better pitching. And there's a lot of worry around how Chapman's been. Chapman's not looked good, and he's blown a couple games now down the stretch. So 17, I think, is very much justified for the Yankees at this point. Number 16, we got the Chicago Cubs. They are free falling this week, 0-6. 0-3 against Milwaukee, which set the stage for them to have a bad week because then they got swept by the Reds right after. I think coming into the week, they were like 1 game back from division lead and then getting swept by Milwaukee. And the Reds, I think they're 8 games back now, maybe 9 after today. Probably still 8 because Milwaukee lost too, but they have a lot of ground. I don't really see their path to victory now at this point, but right there in the middle, they have a chance. These teams, I think, in the 3rd row here, they're out of it, but they still have a chance. They have to get hot at the right time, and right now, none of these teams are really hot the way you would want them to be. Number 15, we got the Seattle Mariners, and they're slowly climbing. That's a good week again. 2-1 against the Toronto and 2-1 against Texas, continuing to play .600 baseball. And with that kind of record, they're right there in the wild card hunt. This is kind of where we start turning into teams that are very much in the wild card hunt. And Seattle, I think, is the borderline team right now. Even though I have them below the Blue Jays and they beat the Blue Jays this week, I think we'll talk about that in a second. Number 14, we have the Washington Nationals, 2-0 against Tampa Bay, and then 0-4 against the Dodgers this week. They had a tough week in terms of they had to play the World Series teams. Played Tampa Bay, which they actually won 2-0. They lost Kyle Schwarber this week, which might hurt them in the long term, but they are in the hunt for their division because really we all know the National League East is up in the air, considering the top team being the Mets, all the injury problems they've had. I think the Nationals are positioned in a position to have a shot. And being swept by the Dodgers, we can't really blame them. The Dodgers are an elite team, and they're coming off a series high beating the Tampa Bay Rays. Number 13, moving on up. They've had a roller coaster of a season, 1-2 against the Padres earlier in the week, and then they swept the Cubs over the weekend to cement their spot in second place in the division right now We had the Reds up high early in the season, then they went on a terrible skid, and now they've kind of settled back down in the middle. We can't forget about them because they're very much in the hunt, even though they're many games back from the Brewers at this point. We're only halfway through the season. Any team can get hot, including the Reds, and we know the Reds are going to have a chance to beat up on the lowly teams in the Central. Moving along to number 12, we got the Toronto Blue Jays. They had a 500 week, but I think it's important to realize that their offense is elite amongst the league, with 3 guys going to the All-Star game as starters. They picked up some bullpen help this past week, picking up Simber from the Marlins. I think they're addressing some of their issues, and I expect them to really be a competitive team going forward, as their starting rotation really isn't that bad. Their bullpen, they're getting help, and they're going to probably add another arm in there, I would suspect. And with their offense, they're very much in the hunt, especially for the wild card. Number 11, we have the Cleveland Indians. They went 1-2 against Detroit, 0-4 against the Astros. But I'm not going to hold this rough week against them too much. They're really struggling with starting pitching, lack of depth right now. And if they have another week just like this, they're going to really free fall. I think it's safe to say between 20 and 10, a lot of these teams can be interchangeable. It really depends on who's streaking at what time. Like if you're on the bottom end of the 20, you've probably been on a downward trajectory, whereas on the top half, maybe you had a stretch like Cleveland early in the season where they were a really good team to watch, or you're hot like the Reds, Nationals, and Mariners right now. But between 10 and 20, all these teams are right now on the outside looking in, but I still give them a chance to make the wild card. Before we jump into the top 10, please take this time to subscribe and like the video. It really helps the channel grow, and this is my most popular video, so I'm hoping it brought in some new faces. And please, before we go into the top 10, scroll down there, give me a thumbs up, and join the channel. We do these videos every week, and we do daily recap videos of the MLB, as well as fun videos throughout the week. So thanks for doing that. We'll move along here to the top 10. And right now, number 10, we have the Oakland A's, 1-2 against Texas, 1-2 against Boston. They're slowly, gradually going down. One thing that's keeping me for them top 10 is that their rotation, I believe, to be one of the best in the MLB right now, at least for going in depth, deep into games, getting consistent pitching. They haven't been getting too injured. They've at least had the same guys going out and out on a regular basis. I think if they were to lose 1 or 2 arms in that rotation, it could spell disaster for the A's. But right now, this is where we start to get in the difference between the teams that are really contending for the World Series and teams that are just gonna, they might make the wild card, you know? Brings us to number 9, leading the American League East right now. We have the Mets. They had a 500 week, 1-2 against Atlanta, 2-1 against the Yankees over the weekend. And they're leading the division while suffering all these injuries to pitching, to hitting, to everything. I think we put them in 9 because they're very likely to win this division. And should they make it in the playoffs and get a little bit healthy, that's a team you're going to want to watch out for. So number 9, I think, might be the lowest we see them going. Number 8, we got Tampa Bay Rays, 0-2 against Washington, 1-2 against the Toronto Blue Jays. Ever since they went on the hot streak in May, early June, they've kind of come back down to earth right now. Glasnow's out, so the rotation suffered. Just losing that 6 innings that Glasnow was good for every week, it hurts the rest of it, right? The bullpen's got to work a little bit harder. Got to send out Waka for more innings, McHugh for more innings. Just a little bit of concern because Wander Franco hasn't performed ever since his first game. He's been good, but he's not making the difference. And at this point, they're falling further and further behind the Red Sox. And honestly, these teams back here are nipping at their heels for the wild card spot. So 8, I think, is very justified for them. Number 7, we got the Milwaukee Brewers, 3-0 against the Cubs, 3-1 over the weekend against the Pirates. They're on the up and up. A lot of people are going to say I have them too low. They're obviously just coming off a very hot win streak of 11. They have an awesome rotation. My concerns lie with the bats and whether they can produce at the level they did over that win streak on a consistent basis. As we get into this top row, it's all World Series contenders, right? And all the teams, while they had an 11-game win streak, every other team up here also had 9+ game win streaks along the way. So we don't just look at this small portion, we look at where they're going, the rest of their division, and how we see them lining up when all is said and done at the end of the season. Number 6, we got the Chicago White Sox. They swept the Twins early in the week, and then they won 1-2 against the Tigers. Tigers are pesky, giving them a run for their money. There's a lot of concern, too, that with Giolito and the whole Donaldson drama and sticky tack, whether that's going to impact the starters. So far, it's looked like it's impacted Giolito a little bit, spin rate, all that stuff. Number 6, I still have them as a heavy favorite in the Central, which locked them up to make the Final Four of the playoffs. So at that saying, I think if in a best of 5, Chicago is a tough team with their rotation and their bats. So 6, I think, is the lower side we're going to see the White Sox this season. Number 5, we got the San Diego Padres, 2-1 against Cincinnati, 1-2 over the weekend against Philly. I don't know, sure, their record isn't as good as some of these other teams. Their win percentage isn't so good, but they've had a tough schedule. They've had a tough go of it with some of the key injuries to their lineup. I think at the end of the day, in a wildcard game, in a best of 5, they're going to be an elite team. They're going to be a team you're not going to want to face with the power bats, the solid rotation that led the way with Darvish and other guys. The bullpen's amazing. I think right now they've underperformed. They've been a very streaky team. Twice, I think they've got to 9 game win streaks, and they've had some stronger losing streaks. They're also in the National League West, which is a very stacked division. We're going to get to that along the way here. Number 4, we got the Boston Red Sox, 4-0 against Kansas City, taking care of the lowly team. 2-1 against Oakland, a tough opponent, bouncing back. I think they're 3-3 against Oakland this year. They've got a little bit of space now from Tampa and Toronto, and they're going good. Their rotation's going good. They're going to get a boost when Chris Sale comes back, assuming he can be the elite starter that he is. This is a very good, reasonable spot for Boston right now at number 4. Number 3, dropping out of the number 1 spot, we have the Giants going 0-2 against Dodgers early in the week. And they're playing right now against Arizona, but we suspect they're going to win today, which would make them beat Arizona over the weekend 2-1, which they should be doing. They're going to have a nice bounce back at least, but I'm starting to have concerns of how long they can actually hold on to this number 1 spot. And I think it's only a matter of time before this team, number 2, the LA Dodgers, takes over. They went 2-0 against San Fran, 4-0 against the Washington Nationals, and they've been hot. And they're the reigning World Series champions. We gave them a little bit of slack early in the season. I didn't drop them down too quickly. And then as soon as I started to drop them down the power rankings, they started playing. And they're right back where they need to be at number 2. I don't think there's much argument. I expect them to win National League West at this point. Expect them, with all the distractions with Bauer and everything going on right now, they're still winning. They don't even seem to need them at this point. That brings us to number 1, the Houston Astros. These two, they hate each other, right? But Astros got swept by Baltimore early in the week, but honestly, I'm not holding it against them because they bounced right back with a sweep against the Indians, 4-0. They've been one of the hottest teams that way. They have a 12-game winning streak a couple weeks ago. Been one of the hottest teams over the past month and a half. And I think they got a pretty big stranglehold now growing on the American League West. And I don't think there's a whole lot of threat of them to miss the playoffs at this point. And if they're in the playoffs, they're going to be one of the tougher teams to beat in the American League, let alone the entire board. So right now, Houston is your new number 1. Thank you guys for going through the whole thing with me. Let me know what you guys think. Who do you agree with? But more importantly, who am you disagreeing with? Who did I just get totally wrong here? If I'm going to have to fathom a guess, I'm going to think it's someone in the 7 or 8 or even 6 spot that you guys just totally disagree with. But that's just me. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Subscribe, like, and we will see you guys for the next video. Thanks for watching.